everything has a purpose.
Thank you, Lefty, for accepting my invitation.
Thank you, Dan, for having me.
I know we're both part of Rob Flax's mentorship program on how to become a better developer or get started in development. And one thing that always kind of surprised me was how you always, during the weekly meetings that we do, you always come up with the most creative solutions to problems that maybe more experienced developers don't really have solutions for. So that's why I wanted to have a chat with you and potentially explore with you how are you making the transition from having a job to becoming a developer. What are the challenges, what are the issues, and how do you process all of this uncertainty?
Yeah, so firstly, thank you very much once again. You've really put me up on a high ladder. But yeah, so my background is a structural engineer. That's what I studied and practiced for 5 years now, or 6 years before I gave it up, which I gave it up in 2020, the end of 2020. Sorry, end of 2019, to begin property developing in 2020. So property development for me was, I feel, a natural progression, but yeah, my experience in being able to problem solve, I feel, stems back to that engineering, because that's essentially what engineering is. It's just problem solving. And I came to a point in my career where I was thinking, where am I going to next? Am I going to head an engineering firm, be it the owner, director of a firm, or a principal senior engineer at a firm? And so I assessed my colleagues that were more senior than me, and I felt like none of those were really an option for me. Not that they weren't an option, but they didn't sit too well. And being a structural engineer, I was one of those critical core consultants of developers, and I'd done a lot of work with developers through my employment, and that really opened my eyes up to property developing. I'd always had a fascination for property in general, and had done a lot of research for property investing, just typical buy and hold, and just putting that engineering together with that investing, that essentially is property developing. And having worked with developers, seeing what they do, it really sat well with me, and I knew that was my calling, essentially. So yeah, that's how I got into property developing.
What were your first steps in educating yourself, in finding the opportunities? How did you navigate? Because I feel like for me, when I started this, I feel like it was a lot of uncertainty. It felt very scary, and I'm just wondering how did you navigate the uncertainty?
Yeah, it definitely can be. I think any business that you go into, anything new, it's always going to be scary at first. But to answer your question, how I got started in it, I recognize that although I was a structural engineer working for developers, that still did not make me a developer. There's still a hell of a lot more in a developer than being an engineer. But I had a lot of core skills, and I recognized the missing links. And I knew that I had to learn those and strengthen those skills. And so I did a property developing course prior to the PDN with Rob Flux that we both doing. And that gave me really good overview. And I also had my good friend that I went to university with, and we're business partners as well now. His family are builders, commercial builders, and have got development experience as well. So they helped put me into a better position in a network as well. And from there, I knew that not getting any younger, even though I'm still pretty young, but not getting younger, you only get older.
How old are you, by the way?
So I'm 26 now.
Yeah, you're very old.
Yeah, very old. But nonetheless, I knew that around the corner there was going to be more responsibility, more expenses in my life, and that making that big shift from full-time employment to working for yourself, particularly in the developing game, which is a very lumpy cash flow. You got those big chunks that come in spread out periods. I knew that now was a better time than ever to make that decision. And you'll never know everything when you first begin, but you'll never know what you don't know until you do begin. So that was really how came to the deciding factor that now is now, and decided to do property development full time. And a big part of that, I couldn't have done it without my wife's support. She's very fantastic and standing by my side in everything I do, and giving me that confidence and the trust in me as well to be able to do it.
And you just recently also became a father.
I did. So on the 29th, so a week and 3 days ago.
How do you feel now that you're a father? How is it compared to what you were thinking that is going to be?
Yeah, so you can't explain like the joy that having a child brings to you. More joy than you can imagine is for me anyway.
Only for you or for your wife as well?
Well, for both of us, but she's definitely got the harder job, having to feed the baby and all. There's only so much that us mere males can do. Support her as much as I can with the baby. But yeah, she's over the moon as well, but a bit exhausted, which is part of the joy, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. But how are you dealing with all of this now? So now you're a father. I suppose your wife is no longer working.
Great.
You're at the beginning of your property development journey. Do you have millions from your parents? How are you doing it? Because it seems like it's a complicated situation.
Yes, I wish I had millions from my family, but I'm not privileged at all in that way. Privileged in many other ways, but not financially. So we made the sacrifice to remain living at home with my wife's family, which is a little bit unorthodox, but it's been really good. They've been very supportive, and we knew that was sort of the only way that we could do it. And it's those short-term sacrifices for those long-term gains. So that's how we are. So we're keeping our expenses
delayed
very
gratification.
low. Exactly, delayed gratification. They got to make sacrifices along the line somewhere, and that's how we've done it.
Even if something goes wrong along the way, at least you made it with pure intentions. Then that will for sure be leading to amazing outcomes in the future.
Exactly, and yeah, we're very fortunate that we've got very supporting family. In terms of that don't want to kick us out or anything like that. So yeah, it's been really good.
That's beautiful to hear. So now you sign up for all of these courses. How are you sourcing opportunities, and what's your strategy? What deals are you currently sourcing? For yourself? And
so we're focusing on residential land subdivision, mainly in Brisbane City Council, and looking to expand in. For now, for the near term, it's in Southeast Queensland region. And so we're focusing on subdivisions between sort of 5 and 20 lots in size for now, and we'll grow that in the future. The way we're sourcing our projects is a bit time consuming, but for me, I feel it's very for me, it's very. I'm a devil's in the detail, I suppose, and so I'll go into a suburb that I feel has one, the adequate amount of potential land to be subdivided, and then go through that entire suburb, make sure that the fundamentals of that suburb stack up, and then assess. Go and look at each property quickly, and put it on a short list, and then, like many, let it drop, make door knock, make phone calls, whatever it takes, send agents out, whatever it takes to really just get in front of that landowner and try and see. I like to see how we can help them, and try and understand their situation, and whatever we can do to help them, that is a win-win situation for both of us, then that's the outcome that we're after. We're all about synergizing, and bringing it all together is my mission statement for.
This looks like an opportunity. Look at it, a Queenslander.
It could be. There's many down here, and actually, if we take the next left, this was actually this was a site that I actually done work on that inspired me to do property development.
What work have you done on this property?
So I was the lead engineer on that project. So it was a existing Queenslander on a approximately 600 meter square block. They've raised it, shifted it off to the side, and built two townhouses at the back.
How complicated it is to actually move a Queenslander?
Pretty simple, actually. It's pretty simple. It's more of an art than it is a science. They just put long steel beams underneath it and disconnect all the services first, and then they put billets, so stacks of wood up underneath them. They jack them up slowly, so they'll jack up about 300 on one side, and then go and shift over to the next, and they'll just keep working it up. And then after that, then they'll relocate new steel beams if need be, depending on what the layout of the columns below is gonna be, and then hang those in footings, hang those into the concrete footings, and then just lower it back down and secure it all up. It's a pretty simple process.
And cost-wise, I'm just wondering what was the
so
level of cost of such a movement. Seems big. Seems very complicated.
Just the actual raising and restumping. And I'm not a builder, and it's not something that don't quote me on the figures, but it's about the 30 to 40,000, and that's just for the raising and the raising of the house and restumping. If it's just a really simple build-in underneath, if you're not looking to build in underneath, then you've got all the other cost of all your plumbing and your gas and electricity and all those other additional costs that come into it, and new staircases. If you're going to put new battens around the undercroft, that's where a lot of the cost is. And if you're going to build in underneath as well, you've got that build cost for slabs and new walls and windows and the rest of it. So and in Brisbane and Queensland, it's a very common thing, just due to the construction of the old homes.
Yeah, a lot of Queenslanders here. It's a very special building that you don't really see in New South Wales or Victoria.
Yeah, and that's all got to do with the climate and the amount of timber and tin is the character that Brisbane calls it, and that's the look of it. And now we are in one of Brisbane's older suburbs.
Yeah, definitely a lot of Queenslanders here.
Yeah,
some of them are beautiful. Look at this one.
Yeah, no, some of them can come up really, really nice when they've been done well.
So I understand that you made a transition, fundamentally thinking long term, but what's your vision? What's your plan? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And so, what's your objective and what's your plan of getting there?
Yeah, so my objective is to have choice, I think, like most people in life. But one of the reasons I also wanted to be the developer was I saw that some developers were doing a lot of shortcuts, and that was leading to a lot of issues with houses, because I'd done a lot of forensic engineering work where we're looking at buildings that have got issues and how do we rectify those. And a lot of those came back to shortcuts from builders and shortcuts from developers and the developers' consultants. And that really upset me. Whenever I do a job, I'd like to think that I'd be selling it to my sister or my mother or someone along those lines. And for most people, a house is the most expensive purchase that they will ever make. And it is heartbreaking when you're doing these forensic engineering jobs and you need to underpin someone's house and they're just hit with a massive fee for that they were not anticipating because someone along the lines took a shortcut. And my sort of solution to that was, well, being the developer, you have the most control over the project that you deliver and the standard that you deliver.
Yeah.
So that was one important factor for me, and I wanted to be able to produce a product that I was proud of, and to be able to provide quality homes and premises to the end user.
So now I have two questions. One of them is, what were the most the shortcuts that you've seen most often, that the builders and other developers were doing? And secondly, what is quality for you? Is it design? Is it the level of finishes? Is it the quality of the building materials? How do you define quality?
So for me, the first question was, what were the most common shortcuts that led to issues? And definitely foundations. So a lot of builders and designers for that fact, and it really comes back down to a lot of the package home builders, a lot of the mass production builders,
the volume builders,
just putting waffle slabs down. And because they have a standard design and they're asking for standard engineerings, when foundations and geology and site conditions are not standard, and because they're squeezing their consultants to a price and the builders to a price, things get missed, not enough consideration gets put into it, and that is really where the biggest issue lies, in my opinion. And even with earthworks as well, not putting enough attention into how the earthworks are conducted and controlled for creating new vacant blocks of land, and taking into account the site conditions with vegetation and soil conditions and all that. So there's a lot in it, and that's why it needs consideration, and I think the consideration isn't put in there, and just people think waffle slabs are the best thing since sliced bread, and they just get pumped out, and those are sort of the shortcuts that get taken that lead to many issues. And so what does quality mean to me? And it isn't just about the finishes, the design. I think it encompasses everything. Everything has a purpose, and when you understand what its purpose is, then you can design it accordingly. And I think quality for me is when you match the project brief, and you provide what's required for that end user. And to me, that's what quality is. We can't all be living in concrete mansions with marble tiles and gold taps and whatever. But yeah, it's I think clever design as well. Being efficient in design. Yeah, all those items that you mentioned, they're all contributing factors to quality.
So I feel like you have a very strong sense of morality in what you're trying to do, and I'm just wondering where is this coming from? Is this from your first 7 years at home with your parents? Is it from a religious background? What is fundamentally, what do you think is the seed that makes you that gave birth to this desire to do it in a more moral way, more mindful towards what other people need?
So definitely family upbringing is one big part of it, and religion is also. And I don't say that to say that the only reason why you are a moral person is because of the religion or belief that you have. But I'm a Christian at heart, and Christianity at heart to me is to love. That is the fundamental of Christianity: to love your neighbor, you love yourself, as Jesus taught us, and the love that God even has for us, in that He had so much love to come to earth in a human form, being Jesus, to show us how to live and show us how we can live. And I think that's how I like to live my life, and just try to think, well, how did Jesus do it? How would Jesus do it? And yeah, well, just to love your neighbor as you would love yourself. I think it's very simple, and that to me is really where the core of that stems from, I suppose. And
that's beautifully said.
Yeah. You just want to do things right, I suppose.
Yeah, fundamentally I feel like you can't really do a dodgy job and get ahead in life on the long term.
Exactly.
Maybe you have a short run,
Yeah.
a few years, but fundamentally, one of the businesses that I truly look up to here that are very present here in Queensland is Sunland.
Yep.
And I feel like what Sunland does very differently than what other people do. They probably give this 20% more in quality and in how they're mindful to the design, and they sort of build with the vision that's where maybe their family would one day live. So they really look after their tenants, both from a design perspective to a price point perspective as well. They don't try to get all of the meat from the bone.
Yeah.
So I feel like they have a very similar approach, and that's probably one of the many reasons why they've been successful for so long. It's a company that has been developing for 40 years, and now they build the tallest residential building until 2011 Q1, and they also have the first fashion designed hotel, Palazzo Versace. And I feel like you can't play the long game but being dodgy.
Definitely, could not agree more. Yeah, as you say, those short-term gains you get caught out. And it's also about, don't just chase the dollars. Provide value to the world in whatever shape or form, and not focus on the money, but the money will come because you're providing value. And that's, I'm a strong believer of that. It's just to provide value.
You should really watch a recent speech that Mr. Sohail Abedian from Sunland did, the urban developer, where his approach, a lot of insights in the video. I think I've watched watched the video already 3 times. But
Gonna have to watch that.
one thing that I like the most about it is how he sort of thinks that you should have a design first approach to property development, because in this way what you're building will sort of be a business card for what you're doing in 30 to 40 years from now on, not just for 10 and 15 years, because the building will look outdated and people will not enjoy living there. So you need to create a sense of community that will unite people and bring them together. So I feel like that's a very healthy way of conducting business, and yeah, I'm very happy that your vision is similar to what seems to be very successful.
Could not agree more. Because particularly in developing, we are putting big footprints on the earth and how communities live and how people live. And again, they're buying most of the time the most expensive thing that they'll ever buy in their life. And that should be something that they enjoy and that they cherish. And having that design focus will provide that. And we'll be rewarded for it, for providing that value.
Definitely.
It's fantastic.
Definitely. Now I have 2 last questions. One of them is, I understand that Subdivision is the way you play the game, but why Subdivision? Why not townhouses? Why not apartments? What brought you to this strategy? And also, what level of equity would somebody need in order to be able to start with a similar strategy?
So, Subdivisions, you can start off doing a very simple 1:2 splitter, all the way up from there. Given that we are in Queensland, I feel that one, we're not as developed as some of the other states. 2, so we still have that land availability. We also, I feel, most people still want that detached dwelling. So I feel like I want to provide that. And not to say, there's less moving parts in Subdivision as well. So for me, it was a good starting place. And then being able to go and grow into other forms of development.
Beautiful. That's very well said. But so what's the level of equity somebody needs for a splitter, and for a bigger, 1:5 subdivision? I just want, because this is not my strategy. I'm just want to wrap my head around what it takes.
So a splitter in the true sense, where it's already it's one property with 2 titles on it. You can go and spend $300 and something odd at the titles office and have it split, or then you have to do the development application if you want to create those multiple lots. So it can vary from that few $1,000s really if you stitch the deal up really well.
What do you mean stitch the deal up? If you join venture with a landowner?
If you join venture with a landowner, or you have a delayed settlement and you do the split before actually having ownership of the property, and not having to settle it on it, and to actually run that deal. By rights, you don't actually need to provide the services to the lots, but to sell them at a decent price, you should. It can be really varied from not much at all to some of the projects that I'm looking at. It's more around that $300,000 to $500,000. Even some projects up to $1 million in equity to be able to run those bigger deals between 5 and 20 lots.
And what margin are they usually getting you? Are they getting to the same 15 to 20%?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's still the same. We try to achieve a 10% profit on cost per annum for the deal. So depending on
annualized return.
Annualized return. So depending on obviously how long the deal is going to take and the complexities of it. And it's also, like many others far more experienced than I have said, it isn't a profit margin, it's a risk margin.
Yeah.
So we need to factor in what's the risk of the project and to what level of risk margin we're willing to accept.
Definitely. We think very similarly. That's probably the fundamentally the reasoning behind why I chose my my strategy as being townhouse developments in Victoria and Melbourne, where I mainly focus on things that have a DA development approval in place.
Yep.
Even though they might not get that 25-30% margin, and they are in the 15 to 25 percent sort of range, that's annualized. It only takes 1 year. So fundamentally, if you compare it on to what you would get for someone that does not have a DDA in place, then it's actually a better outcome. And from a risk perspective, it's also a better, because there's no risk. There should not be any question if you can put 3 there or 4 if you have the permit in place.
Yeah.
But they're very hard to find. So
Yes.
that's where getting educated was definitely a no-brainer, and is allowing me to potentially do something that a lot of people are saying that it's impossible to make money by buying DA approved sites.
Right, that's interesting. Well, I suppose it is critical to really be able to assess that DA to make sure that, one, it's going to sell and it's desirable, which that's pretty simple, but 2, to make sure that things haven't been missed and so that it is constructible. That's a big one, because DA is looking at what impact does a development have on the greater area, and then you have your BA, which is, okay, now how do we actually build this thing?
Yeah, but that's why fundamentally why it's good to, when you buy anything, to buy it with a 2 or 3 weeks due diligence.
Yes,
So
definitely.
you can engage your consultants, you can get a clear understanding if it's buildable, what is the cost, what are the potential hindrances that you might have missed. When you engage a good team, then you have a more clear picture of if your findings really have substance behind them, or if you're just a hallucination of what you think you can actually do.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, and that's developing. It's about putting that A team together that can assist you.
Definitely.
in
Definitely.
creating it all.
Lefty, I really appreciate you coming out.
Thank you, Dan.
Congrats again
been a pleasure.
for taking the leap of faith and coming towards development, and also congrats for becoming a father. I feel like this is a
Thank you very much.
very valuable and interesting moment in your life.
No, it's been fantastic. Really appreciate it.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you again. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate it.
Opportunity.